Sunday began like any other slow, friendly day on their street. Sunlight slipped through the thin curtains of the small living room. Arif sat on the edge of the couch with a cup of tea that had already cooled. He was a quiet man who liked routine. He had watered the money plant near the window, checked on the news for a few minutes, and teased his younger sister, Sana, about over-sweetening the tea. He smiled and said he would go for a short walk after breakfast. The neighborhood felt calm. A child laughed somewhere outside. A kite moved lazily in the sky. He reached for a plate of toast, and then he stopped. A tight feeling pulled across his chest, like a belt suddenly drawn one notch too far. He tried to breathe slowly, but the tightness stayed. He set the plate, down with care, as if any quick move would make the feeling worse. Sana noticed his hand trembling a little. She turned toward him, her smile fading, and asked if he felt okay. He tried to say he was fine, just a little tired, but the words seemed heavy, and his breath came shorter than he liked. Sana had a habit of observing quietly before she acted. She watched the color drain from his cheeks. She saw that he was keeping one hand near his chest, as though he did not want to draw attention to it. She had read somewhere that not all emergencies look dramatic at the start. Sometimes they are small signs that speed up quickly. She put her own tea down, picked up her phone, and spoke gently. "Arif, I want to call for help, just in case." He did not argue. He leaned back on the couch and closed his eyes, trying to breathe through the discomfort. The air felt warmer than usual, and the living room seemed to shrink. The clock ticked loudly. Sana dialed the emergency number and gave their address in a clear voice. The dispatcher on the other end sounded steady and kind. The questions came in a simple order: age, symptoms, whether he was awake, whether he could speak, whether he had any known conditions. Sana answered each one while keeping her eyes on her brother's face. The dispatcher told her to keep Arif sitting up, to loosen his collar, and to watch his breathing. "Help is on the way," the dispatcher said. "Stay with me on the phone." Outside, the street had a long, narrow lane that bent slightly before reaching their building. It was the kind of bend that made big vehicles slow down. There was only one easy access point to their front door, a shared driveway the tenants used to load groceries or help the elderly step down from cars. Most days it was open, because everyone knew it was a lifeline for an ambulance or a fire truck. But that morning, a large SUV stood across the mouth of the driveway at an angle, as if it had just rolled forward and stopped for a quick task. Its nose blocked the turn. The back corner clipped the line where the gate opened. Sana's stomach dropped when she looked out the window. She knew that car. It belonged to their upstairs neighbor, a woman named Karen who had moved in 3 months ago. Karen liked things neat and exact. She liked to comment on recycling days and how people stacked boxes. She liked to discuss rules and signs. The SUV's position looked temporary, maybe a minute or two, but it was in the worst possible spot. Sana pressed the phone to her ear and told the dispatcher the lane might be blocked. The dispatcher stayed calm. "Go outside to guide them," the voice said, "and ask anyone blocking the access to move. I'll stay with you." Sana wanted to be in 2 places at once, next to her brother and out by the street. She looked at him and nodded. "I'm going to run to the entrance so they can find us fast," she said. "I'll keep the call open." Arif opened his eyes and tried to smile, as if to say he trusted her. He took a slow breath and leaned back again. Sana stepped into her slippers, grabbed her keys, and hurried out, the dispatcher's voice still in her ear. The corridor smelled faintly of detergent. The stairwell felt too slow, as if each step resisted her feet. When she reached the gate, the quiet street felt wider and brighter than usual. She could hear the faint, distant echo of a siren, like a promise moving through the morning air. The sound was small at first, then a little louder with each breath. It made her heart beat faster in a way that was both frightening and hopeful. She looked at the driveway and the SUV. The driver's seat was empty. The engine was off. She scanned the windows above and then went straight to the nearest doorbell. Karen's name on the metal plate felt cold under her finger as she pressed. A few seconds passed with no response. She pressed again, longer this time. Footsteps sounded. Inside. The door opened a few inches and Karen stood there in a house sweater with a phone pressed to her ear. Her hair was pinned up in a quick clip. She covered the bottom of the phone with her hand and asked if something was wrong. Sana spoke quickly, breathless but polite. "An ambulance is coming for my brother. Your car is blocking the driveway. Please move it now." Karen blinked and glanced past Sana at the driveway. She nodded once, like she understood, and then she raised her phone again and said into the receiver, "Hold on." Sana waited for her to step out. The siren in the distance grew a little louder, mixing with the everyday sounds of a scooter and a bird. Karen kept her phone to her ear. "I'll move," she said. "1 minute." She held up a single finger, the way people do when they want just a small bit of time. "I just need to finish this call." She spoke softly into the phone again about a delivery that had been missed and a package that needed to be redirected. Sana felt her throat tighten. She pointed to the SUV. "Please, this is an emergency," she said. "He needs help now." She framed the words gently but clearly, the way the dispatcher had said to speak. The dispatcher's voice remained steady in Sana's ear. "You're doing well," the voice said. "Ask again. Say the ambulance is seconds away." Sana breathed in and did exactly that. "The ambulance is almost here," she told Karen. "They need the driveway clear to bring equipment to the door." Karen sighed, the kind of weary sigh that belongs to someone who has been frustrated by small daily problems for too long. "People leave their bikes in front of my spot all the time," she said. "I've told the manager. Nobody listens." She looked past Sana, as if looking at old annoyances in her mind. "I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want basic respect on this street." Sana understood small annoyances. She also understood that minutes matter when someone is unwell. She felt the tug-of-war between empathy and urgency. She did not raise her voice. She did not make threats. She put her hand over her heart as if to measure her own calm. "I hear you," she said. "We can talk about that later. Right now, my brother needs help. Please, please move your car." Her voice wobbled only on the second, "please." The siren grew louder. The bend in the lane would hide the ambulance until the last moment, and then it would need to turn sharply into the driveway. The SUV made that turn impossible. A door across the street cracked open, and an elderly man stepped out to look. He wore a sweater vest and carried a small bag of trash he had planned to take to the bin. He watched the two women at the door and then looked toward the curve where the lane widened and narrowed. "Everything okay?" he asked. His voice was gentle. Sana nodded quickly and said, "An ambulance is coming." He nodded back and stayed there, curious and concerned. A young woman carrying a grocery tote paused at the corner and looked around, sensing that something important was about to happen. Sana thought about running back upstairs to hold Arif's hand, but she knew she had to keep the path clear. She thought about the simple instructions from the dispatcher. Keep calm, guide the ambulance, ask for help. She pressed her phone closer to her ear. "The car is still blocking," she told the dispatcher. "I'm asking her. She says 1 minute." The dispatcher's reply was both calm and firm. "Stay with the entrance. Wave down the ambulance when you see it. We're almost there." Sana nodded, even though the dispatcher could not see her. She took 2 steps toward the edge of the driveway so the ambulance would recognize her quickly. Karen kept her phone up and whispered into it again about the package. Her eyes slid to the SUV as if it were a point in a puzzle she already knew the answer to. "I parked there for just a minute," she said. "Everyone parks here for a minute." Her voice had the tired rhythm of someone who had explained herself many times before. The words were not unkind, but they were slow. Sana heard something else under them. A steady line of old complaints that had very little to do with this moment. Sana folded her hands together for a second. "Please," she said, softer this time. "I'm asking as a neighbor." Down the lane, the siren lifted, dipped, and grew louder. A small tremor of sound bounced off the houses, as if the lane itself wanted to make room. Sana stepped forward to the curb and looked toward the bend. The ambulance would appear any second. Now! She could already picture the lights reflecting off windows. She could already imagine the wheels trying to swing into the narrow mouth of the driveway. She raised one arm and kept her phone in the other. The elderly man put his trash bag down and took a step closer, ready to point too. The young woman with the grocery tote set her bag on the ground and shaded her eyes. Sana glanced back at Karen, who still stood with the door half open, her face thoughtful and her body not yet moving. Sana noticed the careful clip in Karen's hair, the way a person uses a clip when they expect to step out for only a moment. She noticed Karen's slippers and the neat line of clean shoes by the entrance. Life was normal for H. The ambulance slowed at the bend and could not swing into the driveway. The driver looked at the narrow mouth and the big SUV sitting across it like a heavy door. Red and white light flashed over the wall and the gate. Sana felt a thud in her chest that had nothing to do with running. She pointed with both hands now, one toward the driveway, one toward the SUV, like a person trying to move clouds by sheer will. The driver lifted a hand to show he understood. The siren softened, the engine idled, and two paramedics jumped down with a large red bag and a monitor case. Sana ran to meet them. "My brother is upstairs," she said, breathless. "Chest pain. He is getting weaker." She said it twice to make sure they heard. The lead paramedic, a calm woman with quick eyes, looked past Sana to the blocked lane, then back to her. "We'll go on foot," the paramedic said. "Is the door open?" Sana nodded. "Yes, second floor, first door on the right." The paramedic gave a short nod to her partner, and they started moving fast, the wheels of the monitor case rattling over the uneven stones. The elderly neighbor stepped forward and raised his hand at the ambulance, guiding them to stop in a better angle. "I will wave here," he told Sana, as if reading her thoughts. "You go." His voice was steady, like a bridge in a storm. The young woman with the grocery tote put the bag down and said, "I'll clear the steps." She ran ahead to move a stack of water bottles from the stair landing. For a second, all the small, quiet people of the street became a team without anyone saying the word. Sana glanced once at Karen, who still stood at her door, phone in hand, eyes somewhere between worry and habit. Sana did not argue. There was no time for that now. She turned and ran with the paramedics into the building. The stairwell smelled of lemon cleaner and carried the echoes of quick footsteps. The second-floor window threw a line of light across the steps like a path to follow. Sana reached the landing, fumbled with the key, and pushed the door open. The living room felt too still. The cup of tea on the table, the plate of toast, the money plant by the window, everything waited. Arif sat where she had left him, but his head had drooped to one side, his eyes were half open, unfocused. His breathing was slow and uneven, like waves that forgot their pattern. "Arif," Sana said softly, going to her knees beside him. "Stay with me." The lead paramedic was already at his other side. She spoke in clear, short words that sounded like steps anyone could climb. "We are here to help. I'm going to check you. Try to breathe easy." She placed 2 fingers at his neck, watched his chest, and looked at the color of his lips. Her partner opened the red bag and took out gloves, oxygen, and a blood pressure cuff. Sana's phone still carried the dispatcher's voice. "Are the paramedics with you now?" the dispatcher asked. "Yes," Sana said, trying to hold the phone steady. The paramedic glanced at her and nodded. "Put me on speaker," the dispatcher said. Sana did, and set the phone on the table where everyone could hear. The room now had a quiet soundtrack, the dispatcher's calm voice, the soft beep of a monitor warming up, the gentle hiss of an oxygen line being attached. The partner slid the blood pressure cuff onto Arif's arm and clipped a small sensor onto his finger. The lead paramedic lifted Arif's chin slightly to open his airway and placed an oxygen mask over his nose and mouth. "Deep, slow breaths if you can, sir," she said. "You're doing fine." She looked at Sana. "Has he taken any medication today? Any chest medicine? Any allergies?" Sana shook her head. "No chest medicine. No allergies that I know. He was okay this morning and then... this." Her voice shrank on the last word. The paramedic nodded. "You did well to call." Outside, the ambulance stayed at the bend. The driver talked on the radio, asking for backup equipment to be carried in because the vehicle could not enter. The elderly neighbor kept one arm lifted, standing like a living sign. The young woman placed 2 bright cones from the sidewalk near the lane to warn passing cars to slow down. A man from the next building came out with a small folding stool and offered it to the elderly neighbor so he could rest one knee. The scene had a quiet order now, even with the blocked driveway. Everyone could see the shape of the problem, and each person found a small way to help. Inside, the numbers began to appear on the monitor. The partner called them out in a low voice. The lead paramedic listened with her eyes as much as with her ears. She reached for a small packet and asked Sana, "Does he have any pain in his jaw or left arm?" Sana nodded. "He said tightness across his chest. He put his hand here." She touched the place on her own chest where Arif had pressed earlier. The paramedic looked at Arif again. "Sir, I'm going to give you a small tablet to help your heart. Don't chew it. Let it melt." She slipped a tiny tablet under his tongue with gentle care, like placing a seed on soft soil. Arif's eyelids fluttered. His fingers twitched, as if wanting to hold something. Sana took his hand. It was cooler than before. "I'm here," she said, simple and true. For a few moments, the room seemed to stretch around the rhythm of his breath and the soft hiss of oxygen. The dispatcher's voice on the table gave reminders in a calm tone, as if reading instructions on a safe path. "Keep the airway open, keep him warm, do not give food or drink, keep talking to him." Sana pulled a light blanket over Arif's legs. She told him about the kite in the sky earlier, the way it floated like a quiet bird. Down at the doorway, the lead paramedic's partner looked at the blocked lane again and frowned. "We need the defib from the rig," he said softly. "I'll..." "Run!" He moved quickly out the door and down the stairs, past the neat cones and the small gathered group. The driver pointed to a side compartment on the ambulance. He grabbed the case and turned back up the stairs with long strides. Even his hurry had a rhythm to it, the kind that came from training and care. Karen had stepped out into the hall now. She stood a few steps away from Sana's door, as if the floor between them were a river that she was not sure how to cross. She could hear the monitor through the open door and the quiet voice of the dispatcher. She could see the worried faces of the neighbors below. She could also see her own SUV sitting where it should not sit. She held her phone like a shield, but she was not speaking into it anymore. She watched the paramedic run up the stairs with the case, and something in her posture changed, less stiff, more human. The partner reached the living room and placed the case on the floor. "Just in case," he said, more to the air than to the people because his hands already knew the work. The lead paramedic gave another small tablet and adjusted the oxygen. She spoke to Arif in simple, warm words. "You're doing good. Stay with me. Breathe." She looked at Sana. "If he becomes unresponsive, I will need you to help for a moment until we place the pads. I'll guide you." Sana swallowed and nodded. The thought of it made her hands feel strange, like they were both heavy and light, but she nodded again, because there was no room for fear now, only steps. For a few seconds, Arif's breath evened. Sana could see it. Small waves, steady and soft. Then he gave a long, slow exhale and did not draw the next breath right away. "He's pausing," the partner said quietly. The lead paramedic's voice turned even calmer. The way a person's voice can become a handrail. "Okay, Arif, come on, breathe." She tapped the mask lightly, encouraging the next draw of air. When the next breath came, it was shallow. The room seemed to lean toward him, holding him up with attention alone. The dispatcher's voice filled the quiet like a guide in a tunnel. "If he becomes unresponsive, start compressions," the voice said. "I will count with you." Sana realized her phone was more than a phone. It was a steady friend in the center of the table. She moved closer, one hand still holding Arif's fingers, the other ready, the way a child might stand at the edge of a pool, waiting for a call to jump. The lead paramedic placed her own hand on Arif's shoulder and spoke his name again. She glanced at Sana, ready to trade instructions in a single look if needed. Outside, Karen finally moved toward the stairs. She took 2 steps down, then looked, back at the SUV keys hanging on the hook inside her door. She took the keys and came down the steps, not fast, but not slow either. The elderly neighbor saw her and made a small motion with his head toward the car, a motion that said, "Yes, now." Karen nodded, a shaky nod, and walked to the SUV. She opened the door with hands that were not as steady as she might have liked. The engine started with a soft growl. She looked at the cones, at the ambulance, at the narrow lane, at her own choice laid out plainly like stones on a path. She turned the wheel and backed away carefully, clearing the mouth of the driveway. The driver of the ambulance gave a short, grateful wave and began to angle the vehicle into the newly opened space. The red and white light moved over the wall again, but this time it moved forward, closer to the door, like a promise that had finally found the right address. The young woman with the grocery tote picked up one cone and set it at the far end of the lane to prevent any car from entering. The elderly neighbor took a breath he had not known he was holding and let his raised hand rest at his side. For the first time in many minutes, the scene outside looked like a plan instead of a problem. Inside, the partner connected the monitor. Leads. The lead paramedic watched the lines and numbers the way a sailor watches sea and sky. Arif's breaths were still shallow, but they were coming. "Good," she said, and the word felt. The back doors of the ambulance closed with a firm sound, and the world outside turned into a blur of moving light. Inside, the air felt cool and clean, with a soft smell of plastic and antiseptic. A gentle beeping began from the monitor near Arif's shoulder. The straps across the stretcher were snug, but not harsh, like careful hands keeping him steady. Sana sat on a narrow seat beside him, knees close together, one hand resting near his elbow. She could hear her own breath and tried to slow it to match the steady beeps. The lead paramedic leaned close and spoke in a calm voice that made everything feel possible. "Arif, we're taking you to the hospital now. You're not alone." She checked the oxygen mask, looked at the numbers on the screen, and gave a short instruction to her partner. The partner already had a small IV line ready. He spoke in simple words too, almost like a friendly teacher. "A small poke, sir. It will help us give you what you need." He did it quickly and gently. Sana watched his hands. Steady, practiced, kind. For a moment, the beeping sped up and then slowed again, like a hesitant bird trying to find its flight. Sana leaned in so Arif could see her face if he opened his eyes. "I'm here," she said softly. "We are moving. The road is clear now." She could not help it. She glanced at the small window on the door. She imagined the driveway behind, them open and bright, the cones at the lane, the neighbors watching. She pictured Karen in the hallway with her keys, standing very still. Sana did not feel anger now. She felt a tired wish that everyone everywhere would remember that life can change in a minute. The driver's voice came from the front, focused, respectful. "Road is good. 2 minutes to hospital." The lead paramedic nodded and checked. The monitor again. She spoke to Sana in a voice that was warm but honest. "You did the right thing by calling early," she said. "In cases like this, every minute counts. Clear access matters more than people realize." The words were simple, but they landed like small stones building a safe path. Sana nodded. "The driveway was blocked," she said. "It's open now." The paramedic's eyes said she understood the story without needing the details. Back on the street, the red and white reflections faded from the walls. Karen stood by the now empty mouth of the driveway, holding her keys, listening to the quiet that followed. The elderly neighbor picked up his bag of trash again and gave her a small, kind nod, not a lecture, just a human moment. The young woman, with the grocery tote, shifted the cones back to the sidewalk and looked Karen in the eye for a second. "We all forget things," she said softly. "But now we know." Karen nodded once, a small, stiff nod. She felt a thin line of cold run through her. It was not the morning air. It was a feeling that said, "You cannot undo minutes. You can only honor them after." In the ambulance, Sana watched the paramedic place a small spray under Arif's tongue and check the blood pressure again. The partner called out numbers in a steady tone. "Better than before," he said. The lead paramedic's shoulders loosened the smallest bit. "Good," she said, a tiny smile in her eyes. She looked at Sana. "He's responding. Slowly, but he is." The words worked like warm tea in a cold hand. Sana let out a breath she had been holding for too long. The ambulance took a gentle turn. The driver's voice drifted back again. 1 minute. The lead paramedic met Sana's gaze and spoke in a way that did not blame, but taught. "When lanes are blocked," she said, "we bring equipment by hand, and we do it, of course, but the time, it's heavy. People think it's only a few moments. For a heart, a few moments are loud." She looked back at the monitor, then at Arif's face. "We have him, and that is what matters now." Sana thought of those few moments. She thought of Karen's hand raised for 1 minute. She thought of her own 2 hands raised in the street, waving at the turn, pointing at the SUV, trying to move the morning by will alone. A little ache pressed behind her eyes, not just fear, but a new understanding of how thin the line is between ordinary life and sudden need. She squeezed Arif's arm gently. "We will make sure the lane stays open," she whispered, as if making a promise to both of them and maybe to the whole street. The ambulance rolled to a stop, smooth and sure. The back doors opened. Warm daylight rushed in, and with it came a quiet team in blue. Their movements were quick and soft, like a practiced song. "Chest pain, oxygen on, meds given, monitor attached," the lead paramedic reported, and a nurse nodded, checking the line and the mask with careful hands. Sana stepped to the side as they rolled the stretcher down. The ground felt steady under her feet again. Signs on the hospital wall pointed forward with clear arrows. The hall smelled like clean floors and fresh cotton. They moved into a bright room where machines waited politely by the walls. A doctor with kind eyes greeted Arif by name and put a hand on the rail of the stretcher for a second, as if to welcome him safely. "We'll take it from here," he told the paramedics, then looked at Sana. "You did well," he said. "You got him here." The words were simple, but they felt like a hand on her shoulder. The paramedics stepped back, tidy and quiet, giving the room to the next team. A nurse guided Sana to a chair in the corner. "You can stay right here," she said. "You'll be close." She offered water. Sana took a sip. Her hands no longer shook, but they felt heavy, like they had carried too much in a short time. She watched as the team placed soft pads, checked numbers, listened to Arif's chest, asked short questions. Arif's eyes opened halfway. He looked toward the sound of Sana's voice when she spoke. "I'm here," she said again, because it was the truest thing she could say. Back at the building, Karen walked inside and sat on the bottom step of the stairwell. She looked at the neat shoes by her door, the small plant on the windowsill, the metal hook where her keys had hung. All the tidy things she liked to keep in order looked back at her without judgment. She felt a deep push in her chest, not pain, but a kind of honest pressure, a call to do better. She unlocked her phone and opened a blank note. Her fingers hovered. Then she typed a sentence. "Emergency access must stay open. Always." She added another line. "I am sorry." She did not know yet where these words would go, on a sign, in a message, in person, but she knew they had to leave the phone and reach real people. She stood up. She could not sit still with that knowledge, not this time. In the hospital room, the doctor spoke to the team in low words Sana could partly follow. He used simple phrases when he turned to her. "He needs to rest. We will watch him closely," he said. "Your quick call helped. The oxygen and medicine helped. Every step mattered." Sana nodded. The sentence reached her the way a sunrise reaches a cold street. Slow but sure. She pressed a hand to her scarf, feeling the fabric, reminding herself she was here, present, steady. The lead paramedic returned to the doorway for a moment to give a final handover. Before she left, she looked at Sana and spoke in a quiet tone meant for one person, not the whole room. "We almost didn't get the vehicle in," she said. "But we had you. You were brave and kind. Sometimes that is the difference." Her eyes held a soft spark of respect. Sana stood and thanked her, and the paramedic gave a small nod and went back to the day, to the next call, to the next person who would need that calm voice. Outside the hospital, the sun had climbed a little higher, painting the parking lot with clean light. Birds made quick motions in a nearby tree. A volunteer pushed a cart of fresh water bottles toward the entrance and smiled at each person who passed. The world kept moving, ordinary and huge at the same time. On the ride back, the lead paramedic spoke to her partner in the measured tone of people who work close to risk and keep their hearts open. "Blocked lane," she said. "Still made. It." The partner nodded. "People forget," he answered. "We remind them." They were not angry. They were tired in a way that carried purpose, like people who accept that teaching is part of their job. They knew they would say the same words again another day, with the same calm, because calm opens doors that fear cannot. Karen left the building and walked down the lane to the corner where the ambulance had paused earlier. She stood there for a moment, looking at the empty space where the red and white lights had flashed on the walls. She could almost see the scene again. Sana's raised arms, the elderly neighbor's steady hand, the young woman moving the water bottles on the stairs. She took a slow breath and felt something shift inside, like a heavy drawer opening on an old track that finally gave way. She took out her phone and typed the building manager's number. "Hi," she said when the call connected. Her voice was not stiff now. It was clear. "We need permanent signs at the driveway. Reflective ones, and paint on the ground. I will pay for it. Please meet me this week to set it up." There was a pause on the other end, then a surprised but grateful answer. "Yes, of course," the manager said. "Thank you." Karen ended the call and stood very still, listening to the morning. She realized she did not want to hide from Sana. She did not want to shrink behind a door or a phone. She wanted to look her neighbor in the eye and say the words she had typed. She wanted to do it today, not later. She looked up the hospital's name on the emergency card posted by the gate and memorized it. She did not know exactly what she would say, but she knew the first word would be sorry, and the second would be help. Back in the hospital room, the machines kept their soft rhythm. Arif's color looked a little better. The nurse Ajwa. The first hour at the hospital felt long and quiet, like a hallway with many doors. Arif lay on the bed with warm blankets over his legs and a soft light above him. The monitor kept a gentle rhythm, not loud, but steady enough to keep courage alive. Sana sat in the chair beside him and watched the nurse check lines, note numbers, and smile in small ways when something looked good. The doctor came back to explain in simple words that Arif's heart had been under stress, that the quick call and oxygen had helped, and that they would run more tests, keep him under observation, and make a plan for medicine and rest. Each sentence was short and kind. Sana repeated them in her mind like steps on a safe stair. Arif woke and slept in small waves. When he woke, he looked for Sana, and she was always there, like a lamp left on in a room. He did not talk much. He squeezed her fingers to say thank you. A nurse lifted the side rail, checked the IV, and told Sana where to find water, tea, and a quiet corner if she needed to stretch her legs. But Sana did not want corners. She wanted to stay close. She sent one message to their parents, and a second, to the building group chat asking for prayers, then put her phone away. The room already had too many sounds: beeps, wheels, soft footsteps. It did not need more. Near midday, a knock came at the door. It was small, not sharp, as if the person knocking wished to take up as little space as possible. Sana looked up and saw Karen standing there holding a simple paper bag with 2 bottles of water and some fruit. Karen's face looked different from the morning. The careful lines were still there, neat hair, neat sweater, but her eyes carried a new softness, like someone who had walked across a long bridge in her mind. She stayed at the doorway and spoke in a quiet voice. "May I come in for a minute?" she asked. Sana stood and nodded. She did not know what she would feel: anger, relief, or something else. But she listened to her own breath and chose calm. Karen stepped inside and kept a respectful distance from the bed. She placed the bag on a small table and folded her hands together as if to hold her words steady. "I am sorry," she said. The words were simple, and for once she did not add rules to them. "I blocked the driveway. I thought it was for a short time. I thought I could finish a call and then move. I did not see the weight of those minutes. I am truly sorry." Silence followed for a second. Not heavy, just real. Sana looked at Arif, who rested with his eyes closed. She looked back at Karen. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Thank you for moving the car when you did. He is stable now. The team says we were close, but he is stable." She did not use hard words. She used simple ones that still carried truth. Karen nodded, and her eyes shone in a way that had nothing to do with light. "I would like to fix what I can," she said. "I've called the building manager. I will pay for reflective signs and paint on the ground so the driveway is clearly marked. I also signed up for a CPR class this weekend. I thought I knew enough. I did not. I want to learn." Sana's shoulders softened. She had not expected this, and yet it felt like the next right step in a path that had already begun. "That would help," she said. "Signs help and training helps. Sometimes a bright reminder is the difference between a habit and a mistake." Karen nodded again. She looked at Arif with respect, not pity, and then at Sana. "If you or your family need anything, meals, a ride, help with errands, please tell me. I want to show with actions, not just words." Sana thanked her. They did not hug. They did not need to. In that small, clean room, honesty was enough. When Karen left, Sana sat again and let the quiet return. The nurse came by with a new blanket, and whispered, "That was a brave visit." Sana smiled. It was. It takes energy to say sorry where everyone can see. It takes more energy to change. In the afternoon, the doctor returned with test results and a simple plan: rest, medicine, follow-up visits, and a few lifestyle changes. More walking, less late-night work, steady meals, and quick help if symptoms returned. He explained what signs to watch for and wrote them on a card for Sana to put on the fridge. He did not rush. He answered every question in easy words. "You did the right thing by calling early," he repeated. "Clear access helped. Quick oxygen helped. Keep those lessons close." Back at the building that evening, a small meeting took shape almost by itself. The manager sent a message to the group chat. "Emergency lane discussion at 7 p.m. in the courtyard. Everyone welcome." People arrived with folding chairs, cups of tea, and open faces. The elderly neighbor came with his sweater vest and kind nod. The young woman with the grocery tote came with a notebook. A father from the third floor brought a roll of reflective tape he had in his car, just in case. Even the children sat on the steps, curious and quiet. Karen stood near the front, not to lead, but to witness. When the manager thanked her for funding the signs, she shook her head. "This is overdue," she said simply. "I should have understood earlier." A few neighbors had strong feelings and wanted to say them out loud. One woman called the morning unacceptable. Another said, "Rules exist for a reason." The words were not wrong, but their heat began to rise. Sana, who had just returned from the hospital for a short hour while a cousin sat with Arif, raised her hand and asked to speak. Her voice was steady, gentle, and it moved through the courtyard like water smoothing a rough stone. "Thank you for caring," she said. "Thank you for the cones, the open doors, the hands that helped. Thank you for the ambulance that found a way, even with the block. Today taught us something. Let's make it easier for the next person." She looked at Karen without accusation. "We can choose solutions over blame. We can choose reminders over lectures. We can choose habits over random acts." The manager laid out a simple plan for everyone to see. First, bright reflective signs at both ends of the driveway that read, "Emergency access, keep clear at all times." Second, yellow paint on the ground with the same words, plus arrows showing the path. Third, a driveway buddy system. One person in each building would do a quick evening check that the lane was open and send a photo to the group chat. Fourth, a shared emergency alert message template to send in the chat when someone needed quick help. Emergency, keep lane clear, meet at gate, bring water, move obstacles. Fifth, a weekend CPR and first aid class on site, open to all, with a discount the manager had arranged. The list felt clear and possible. People nodded. The father with the reflective tape held it up like a bright ribbon. The young woman with the notebook volunteered to design the message template. The elderly neighbor offered to be the first driveway buddy for a week. Karen raised her hand and said she would cover the cost of the paint, the signs, and a portion of the class fee so more people could attend. No one clapped. They did not need to. They accepted it as a new way to live together. There was, however, a small near setback in the plan, the kind that makes a group test its patience. A few people worried about where delivery trucks would wait when the lane was busy. A debate began to grow. Some wanted a temporary loading zone near the corner. Others said that would just move the problem. Voices started to overlap. The manager looked a little tired. Sana stepped in again with simple words. "We can try a pilot," she said. 2 weeks. We test a loading spot painted in white on the far side, away from the driveway mouth. We take photos. We see what works. We adjust. The courtyard calmed. A pilot felt like an honest bridge between ideas and action. By the end of the hour, the plan had dates. The signs would arrive by Friday. The ground would be painted on Saturday morning. The class would be Sunday afternoon, under the shade of the big tree. The driveway buddy list filled with names, faster than anyone expected. As the meeting ended, neighbors stayed to talk in small circles. They shared stories about small scares. An uncle who fell, a child who choked on a grape, a night when a fire truck had struggled to turn. These stories did not make the night heavy. They made it real, like candles that help you see the path. You are already on. Before going back to the hospital, Sana stood for a moment at the mouth of the driveway. It already felt different, even before the paint, because people were now guarding it with attention. She sent a message to the group. "Thank you, Arif is stable, we will update tomorrow." Simple words, big relief. Karen walked up beside her with a quiet step. "May I ask how he is?" she said. Sana told her the plan: rest, medicine, follow-up. Karen listened, then asked, "May I bring soup tomorrow?" Her voice was careful, not pushing. Sana smiled and said that would be kind. At the hospital that night, Arif slept more deeply. A nurse adjusted the oxygen and left a note on the whiteboard. Goal: restful night. Sana read it and felt her shoulders release another layer of worry. She wanted to tell Arif about the meeting, the signs, the class. She wanted to tell him how the lane would shine at night and how neighbors had turned into a team. She would. Tell him in the morning when he woke for tea. Morning arrived with soft light and a smoother rhythm. Arif's color looked better, his voice a little stronger. The doctor used a friendly tone to share good news. He responded well, "We'll keep him another day to be safe." Sana sent the update to the group chat, and the replies came like, "Small lights. Alhamdulillah. So glad. Praying. Anything needed?" Karen sent one message too, not long. "Grateful. Signs coming today." That afternoon, a small van delivered 2 bright signs. Arif was discharged on a bright Tuesday morning, 2 days after the scare. He changed into his soft shirt and smiled at the nurse who brought the final papers. The doctor explained the medicine in simple words and handed Sana a printed plan. Morning pill, evening pill, gentle walks, light meals, and a follow-up visit in 1 week. "Listen to your body," the doctor said. "If anything feels wrong, call early." Arif nodded. He was a quiet man, but his eyes showed relief and respect for this careful advice. Sana pushed the wheelchair to the hospital entrance. The breeze outside felt clean and kind, as if the air itself wished them a softer day. A volunteer helped them get into a small ride-share car. On the way home, Arif held Sana's hand. "Thank you," he said, simple as always. Sana smiled. "We did it together," she answered. The city moved past their window, shops opening, kids with backpacks, a fruit cart with neat rows of oranges. Everything looked normal again, but Sana knew their street was not the same. It was stronger now. When they reached the building, the new signs were shining at both ends of the driveway. "Emergency access! Keep clear!" The letters on the ground looked bright and serious. A yellow arrow pointed inward, showing the exact path an ambulance would take. 2 neighbors were standing near the signs, almost like proud guards. The elderly neighbor in the sweater vest waved with gentle joy. The young woman with the grocery tote held a small bunch of flowers. "Welcome home," she said to Arif. "We're happy you're okay." Arif smiled in his quiet way and said, "Thank you for helping." Karen stood a few steps back, holding a thermos of fresh soup. She did not push forward. She waited until Sana met her eyes. Then she walked up and spoke softly. "This is for you," she said to Arif. "It's simple vegetable soup. Light and warm." Arif thanked her. Sana took the thermos and nodded. She could see Karen's hands were steady now, and her face was open. There was no speech, no show, just a neighbor trying to be useful in a true way. It felt right. Inside the apartment, the money plant by the window looked greener than before, as if it too had been watered by good news. Sana helped Arif settle on the couch with pillows behind his back. She poured a small bowl of soup and let him sip slowly. They laughed at how careful they had become with every small thing: steps, spoons, breaths. Arif said the soup tasted like school lunches from childhood, simple and kind. Sana messaged the group, "Arif is home, thank you all." The replies came quickly: heart emojis, short prayers, and a practical note from the manager. CPR class at 3 p.m. on Sunday. Everyone, welcome. That afternoon, Sana took a slow walk with Arif down the newly marked lane. They moved like people learning a new dance. One step, rest, one step, rest. Children rode scooters at the far end, keeping clear of the arrows without being told. The young woman with the tote pointed to the painted words and said to a child, "These letters mean make space for help." The child nodded, eyes wide, as if the letters were a secret power. Arif paused at the mouth of the driveway and looked up and down the street. "It's beautiful," he said. Sana laughed. "It's paint," she said. "And a promise," he answered. The first real test of their new habit came 3 days later in a quiet way. The elderly neighbor felt dizzy while watering his balcony plants. He sat down and sent the agreed message to the group chat. "Emergency. Keep lane clear. Meet at gate." The words were short and strong. In less than a minute, 2 people posted photos showing the driveway was open. Another neighbor met him at his door with water and a chair. The young woman called the clinic and arranged a quick check. It turned out to be something small, dehydration and an empty stomach, but the system worked like a clean machine. No one shouted. No one lectured. People moved in calm circles, and care arrived fast. Karen joined the Sunday CPR class under the big tree, just as she had promised. She listened hard, asked good questions, and practiced compressions with careful hands. When it was time to try the AED training device, her fingers shook for a second, then steadied. The instructor spoke with the same calm Sana remembered from the dispatcher. "Check for response. Call for help. Begin compressions. Use the AED if available. Keep going." Karen practiced the steps twice, then once more, like a person who wanted the knowledge to live inside her muscles, not just in her head. That evening, neighbors stayed behind to clean up mats and share tea. Stories traveled in small, warm threads. A father admitted he had once parked for 1 minute near the gate and would not do it again. A teenager said she wanted to be the driveway buddy during school holidays. The manager showed a new laminated card to tape inside the lobby, listing emergency steps in simple words. Sana looked around at the group and felt something she would later call street courage, the soundless strength a place can hold when people agree to care for one another. Arif's days settled into a gentle routine: morning walk, breakfast, medicine, rest, small talk, light lunch, a short nap, a quiet show on TV, a few pages of a favorite book, and another slow walk in the late afternoon. Sana kept a small notebook by the couch with a checklist. Sometimes Arif joked about the list, saying, "You run a good ship, Captain." Sana smiled and saluted. They both enjoyed the ordinary rhythm that had returned, even if it was slower. Now, slowness felt like kindness after what they had faced. One afternoon, the lead paramedic passed by the street on her way back from another call and saw the new signs. She stopped and took a small photo, not to share widely, but as a reminder. To herself, that change is possible. She remembered Sana's steady voice, the neighbor's quick help, and the moment Karen moved the SUV. She told her team later, "If more streets did this, our job would be easier. But even when they don't, we bring calm with us." The partner nodded. They both knew calm is a tool as real as any bag or monitor. The pilot plan for a small loading spot near the corner worked better than anyone expected. Delivery drivers used it without fuss. The white paint and a simple sign helped them see where to pause. A few times, a new driver tried to roll into the driveway for a quick drop, and a driveway buddy politely waved them to the corner. No arguments followed. The rule had become normal, and normal is the strongest teacher. A week later, the building group celebrated Arif's follow-up. Appointment with small messages. All the best. Prayers. You got this? And late that afternoon, Sana posted the update everyone was waiting for. Doctor says he's healing well. Continue routine. Thank you. The courtyard felt brighter that evening. Karen placed a small box by Sana's door, a home blood pressure monitor with a note for peace of mind. Sana thanked her in person. You didn't have to, she said. Karen's answer was simple. I wanted to do something useful. There were still tiny moments that tested their patience because life is not a perfect string of easy days. A taxi driver once stopped too close to the gate to pick up a passenger. A child dropped a bag of marbles, and they rolled into the lane like little stars. A delivery person left a box near the curb where the arrows began. But each time, someone nearby noticed. Someone moved the box, gathered the marbles, or asked the driver to shift a few meters. The tone stayed calm. The goal stayed clear. The lane stayed open. Sana and Arif began to host a gentle tea on Fridays. They invited whoever happened to pass by, old neighbors, new faces, even the building manager who sat on a folding chair, and laughed about how many cones he had ordered just in case. Karen often brought simple cookies or cut fruit. The young woman with the tote would stop on her way home from the market and share a quick story about a funny customer or a new recipe. The elderly neighbor always had a quiet joke ready. The tea tasted better than any fancy drink because it carried the flavor of ordinary gratitude. As the weeks passed, Sana noticed a change in herself too. She no longer rushed through mornings. She looked out the window for a second when light first touched the money plant. She kept the emergency card on the fridge, but it did not scare her to see it. It felt like a seatbelt, a small reminder that safety is a habit, not a worry. She also kept one more note inside her notebook, written the day after the scare. Compassion must move faster than anger. She saw it each morning before her first cup of tea. It kept her gentle. Arif slowly gained strength. He joked more. He walked to the corner shop and back, waving at the new signs like an old friend. Once, he stopped by the mouth of the driveway at sunset and said, "This painted line is not just paint. It is a promise we kept." Sana understood. The lane had become a symbol of how a street can grow wiser without becoming heavy. It was practical and hopeful at the same time. The night before his second follow-up appointment, the sky turned a deep blue, and the letters on the ground glowed softly under the streetlights. A breeze moved through the courtyard, touching the leaves and the new signposts. Children played. A quiet game of catch, careful to stay clear of the arrows. Neighbors sat on steps and talked about ordinary things, school schedules, laundry, the best time to buy mangoes. Sana made tea and watched the scene like a small movie of everyday life. She felt calm in her chest, the kind that spreads like warm light. Karen joined them with a tray of sliced fruit and 2 clean water bottles, the kind she now kept ready for emergencies. She sat beside Sana and asked how Arif was feeling. Sana answered with a smile. Better, Ed. Slow and steady is good. They did not talk, Abe.